machine with a need to bleed you when the light goes green. Best believe I'm in the zone to be. From a yin to my yang to Z. Put a grin on my chin when you come to me, cause I'll win, I'm a one of a kind, and I'll bring death to the place you're about to be. Another river of blood running under my feet. Forged in the fire lit long ago. Stand next to me, you'll never stand alone. I'm last to leave, but the first to go. Lord, make me dead before you make me old. I feed on the fear of the devil inside of the enemy faces in my sight. Aim with a hand, shoot with a mind, kill with a heart like Arctic ice.
I am a soldier and I'm marching on.
I am a soldier and I'm marching on.
I am a warrior, this is my song.
I am a warrior and this is my song. I'm basking the glow of the rising war. Lay waste to the ground of an enemy shore. Wade through the blood spilled on the floor. And if another one stands, I'll kill some more. Bullet in the breach and a fire in me, like a cigarette thrown to gasoline. If death don't bring you fear, I swear you'll fear these marching feet. Come to the nightmare, come to me. Deep down in the dark where the devil be. In the mall where the jaws and the razor teeth, where the brimstone burns and the angel weeps. Crawl to the gods of across your path, and my silhouette hangs like a body bag. Hope is a moment now long past. The shadow of death is the one I cast. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a warrior and this is my song. My eyes are steel and my gaze is long. I am a warrior and this is my song.
We're not just going to shoot the bastard. We're going to cut out their living guts and use them to grease the treads of our tanks. We're going to murder those lousy bastards by the bushel.
Now I live lean and I mean to inflict the grief, and the least of me is still out of your reach. The killing machine's gonna do the deed until the river runs dry and my last breath leaves. Chin in the air with a head held high, I'll stand in the path of the enemy line. Feel no fear, know my pride. For God and country I'll enjoy life. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a warrior and this is my song. My eyes are steel and my gaze is long. I am a warrior and this is my song.
All right, now you sons of bitches. You know how I feel.
And welcome to Cold War Radio, live from the Steel City Resistance Studio in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. deep down in the broadcast bunker. Please follow me on Spreaker, like the Facebook page. Wow, this sounds a lot of bass, man. Wow, let's turn that back a little bit. Please follow me on Spreaker, like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Cold War Radio 22. You can catch Cold War Radio on Blueberry, on Roku via Blueberry, or Blueberry right on the webs. You can also catch the show on YouTube, the405media.com. Cold War Radio is an iHeartRadio program. You can catch the Cold War Radio app, which is free, and you can rate the show at hutch@steelcityresistance.com. You can become a Cold War Radio patron at steelcityresistance.com, and the Cold War Radio patron hotline is up and running, 412-567-1460. Chat room is up on Spreaker. Like I said, go to steelcityresistance.com, catch the show notes, links there, become a Cold War Radio patron. If you like what you're hearing, maybe consider helping us out a little bit. If you want to send mail, it's Hutch Bailey Jr., P.O. Box 96022, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 15226. All right, let's get into this right away. I'm not hearing myself properly. Let's get into this right away and talk about the rally that happened over the weekend. It was an excellent rally in Moon Township, Pennsylvania, a suburb of the city of Pittsburgh, about 10, 13 miles outside of the city, and I attended it. It was a magnanimous event. I mean, it was, he brought it. He brought it. And I'll tell you, the place was packed. And this was a Saturday night. And there's no food, no beer, no wine, no Pepsi, no Coke, no nothing. The only thing there was some vendors. And I got to tell you that the Trump business is booming, because that was the fourth rally that I attended. And there were more vendors there than I've ever seen before. I mean, these guys are getting professional. We were standing in line waiting to get in because now they've upped the game, now Secret Service and everything. So we're standing alongside a vendor, and he's got 3 canopies, the kind you set up for a picnic. He's got 3 of them. I don't know how he did all this. And there's tables full of merchandise under all of these, and he's standing there. And he's, hawking his gear. He's saying Trump beanies, Trump glasses, and he goes through this list. And then he pauses. And now, meanwhile, the line is stopped. So we're the same group of people is listening to this guy say the whole thing, right? Finally, he says, Trump water. And everybody starts cracking up laughing. And he didn't know what to say. Finally, he just said, tastes like freedom. And everybody cracked up again. It was a good time. It really was. There was only one protester, and she decided to go off right behind me. So I got a hold of, I didn't say that. I got a look at her. And she had I think she was a plant, because she had a United States Navy retired cap on, and her boyfriend/girlfriend was behind her. And she got past me, but the lady in front of me was a little lady, a little 50-year-old woman, turned around and snatched that lady, wouldn't let her go any further. And then I saw her Big Mike boyfriend, girlfriend, this lady behind me tried to follow her. I blocked her. I put the block on her. But then the lady pushed the protester back, and I gave her a little help, a little shove. Go on, get. And the security guy turned around and said, "Don't touch her." All right, I won't. You touch her. Get her out of here. So they did, and it wasn't a big deal. It was fun. She was angry though, man. I'm a big fat liar. That's what she called it. That was the extent of her comments. A big fat liar, screaming at the top of her lungs that the president was a big fat liar as he was up there telling the truth. Unbelievable. But a good rally. Peggy Noonan, who I have renamed Lovey. This is Lovey Howell, because she had her pearls all clutched. You got to listen to her. Listen to all these people, actually. They're really remarkable. They're reacting. And Chuck Todd was in there, too. And he was interviewing over the weekend Secretary Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary. Didn't say a word about fiduciary policy or treasuries or anything that had anything to do with the economy. All he kept doing was crying because the president called him a sleepy son of a bitch, which he is. I mean, this guy went all weekend. He was triggered, baby. And I can't remember how much of him's in this clip. Not much. But that's what we're talking about. Let's take a listen.
By Kim, but he will. Right. I don't think he'll.
That is what he promised.
I got
the deal maker. Right?
I got to bring up last night's rally a little bit, because to me it was a culmination of a week that he loved his presidency this week. This was the presidency he dreamed of. But what was funny was about how he sort of mocked the idea of being presidential. Peggy,
yes.
Watch.
I'm very presidential. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight. Rick Cohn will be a great, great congressman. He will help me very much. And then you go, God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.
So, Peggy, I'm going to tee you up here because He went after
Yes,
you, but you're a
why?
nice lady. Apparently you write about him being a Neanderthal all the time. But it actually, I said, well, we looked at your column this week, and you note this. You say centrists and moderates are trying to wrap their head around him. That, yes, it's crazy, but maybe it's working. But then you write this. Crazy doesn't last. Crazy doesn't go the distance. Crazy is an unstable element that, when let loose in an unstable environment, explodes. If the president is the way he is on a good day, what will he be like on a bad day? It all feels so dangerous.
Yeah, that was a column in which I tried to wrap my head around how many folks in business and folks on the ground in American politics, moderates, centrists, look at this White House and they say, you know, in terms of this, and this is kind of working. But then I look at this, and this, his actions, and I think he's kind of crazy. And they have to go, it's kind of working, he's kind of crazy. And it causes a certain disquiet and confusion. I have to say, in fairness, isn't disquiet a nice word?
So crazy.
He was very funny.
That was funny.
Yes.
No, that was a very little funny routine. He's not wrong about all those people.
It was spoofy, and there was, I think he was making fun of the false formality meant to give an air of seriousness to many of our politicians. I would like to note merely, he seems to think that in this column I called him a Neanderthal. I did not. I would not. I've been studying Neanderthals. They had great cave paintings. Those paintings spoke of a certain sensibility, a certain artistic complexity. Their tribes were organized. I would not call him a Neanderthal. That would not be fair.
Found out they were not low IQ.
Yeah, there you go. You got to stop there, guys. All right. When I come back, it's Senator Elizabeth.
Aren't they tricky? Aren't they so clever? I mean, they're just clever beyond words. They're up there celebrating a word, disquiet. You know, these people are morons. They are complete, detached, out of touch individuals, man. They never leave Washington. They think Washington is like the rest of the country. I mean, first of all, what the president said was that if he was like that and then he made that imitation. Remember now, this is Saturday night, about 7:30 p.m. Everybody's standing up for hours. No other politician in the country could get that many people from the Pittsburgh area to do that. I promise you. And there was a Penguins game. Now, he said that if I did that, none of you would come out here. And he's 100% right. If George W. Bush had come out there at that time, he would have got, at the most, half of that crowd. And not even that. Because I've been to those, and they have them in hotels. You know, they don't have them in a big, sprawling aircraft hangar. Unbelievable. But that's the way they are. You know, they're out there. And then you have CNN. CNN's Jim Acosta, and he still thinks everybody cares about the American Indians' feelings when the president rightly calls out the fake Indian Pocahontas.
Hear the president going after you from time to time, referring to you as Pocahontas. I know recently you were speaking about your Native American
Listen
heritage.
to how many times he comes back to
under
this.
your skin when he does that? And do you want to run for president in 2020?
I am not running for president in 2020, but let me tell you my story. You know, my mother and dad were born and raised in Oklahoma. My father fell in love with my mother when they were both still teenagers. And he was just head over heels over her. But his family was bitterly opposed to their relationship because she was part Native American. And
so does that bother you when the president calls you
out,
Pocahontas? Do you think that he is being disrespectful to Native Americans when he does that? Doesn't that bother you? Because your family's heritage?
Look, this is what I was trying to tell you, is about my family's story. Because my family's story is deeply a part of me and a part of my brothers. It's what we learned from our parents. It's what we learned from our grandparents. It's what we learned from our aunts and our uncles. I went to speak to Native American tribal leaders, and I made a promise to them that every time President Trump wants to try to throw out some kind of racial slur, he wants to try to attack me, I'm going to use it as a chance to lift up their stories. And I'm going to do that right now by pointing out that more than half of all Native women in this country have been the victims of sexual violence. And more than half of them are attacked by non-natives. And the American government is doing nothing about this. This is an issue that's happening right here in America. Native women are subjected to sexual violence at rates much higher than any other group in our country. We need to put some focus on this, and we need to...
Yeah, that's what we got to do at the federal government level. That's what we need to do in the Senate, is worry about that. I mean, you know, it's beyond... CNN Acosta's lost his mind, for one thing. He thinks that this is what everybody cares about. And he's just confused. He's completely confused about the whole thing. But hey, you know, I wish she would get in.
Americans want our next president to be a woman. Hey babe, here's looking at you, Senator Elizabeth Warren. The planet is warming and the power is shifting. We need a leader who won't stand for all the Wall Street bullshit the lobbyists grifting. Run, 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 Liz, run. You gotta run for the office and get the job done. Run, 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 Liz, run. We need a president. We need President Warren. A president. We need President Warren. You shoot straight and tell the truth that we've been chipped, squeezed, and hammered. People think that the system is rigged because it is, and it's time that we stand up. The contract we've known has been cheated and broken. We need a leader who won't stand for all the corporate bullies, political ponies. Run, 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 Liz, run. You gotta run for the office and get the job done. Run, 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 Liz, run. We need a president. We need President Warren. A president. We need President Warren.
Oh, what a bunch of angry leftist women out there. My goodness. By the way, I want to respond to some comments on my Facebook page and otherwise. The reason I play these clips is because I'm a military person, ex-military, retired military. And you got to know your enemy, ladies and gentlemen. You got to know what these people are thinking, because if you don't, they're going to sneak one in on you. You can predict these people once you watch them for a while. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm not going to stop playing these clips, and I'm not going to stop putting the videos on the Facebook page either. That's there for a reason. You got to pay attention to these people. Now, there's some chickens coming home to roost, and I got a little bit of pushback on Twitter because somebody said I was calling names when I said leftist chickens are coming home to roost, and I posted this article. But liberals are worried. And when I say liberals, the leftist Democrats that are on the committee that is reviewing this school shooting are worried that government agencies might be held responsible for Parkland shooting, not the NRA. Imagine that. Imagine that. This committee hearing is going to turn into an indictment of Broward County, the federal government, the Trump administration, Eric Holder's policies to artificially lower certain groups' representation in the penal system. In other words, the people that are doing the crime. It's your fault, and it better you better be held accountable for it. I mean, it's only right. So we'll see how that turns out. Incidentally, the gun control debate is just about dead as far as any legislation goes. You could see that with the president backing off of his age requirement. Well, he knows. He's got his direct line to the whips in the Senate and the House. There's no way that either one of those things are going to pass. So this happens every time, and the Democrats are so stupid they continue to fall into it every time. Gun sales go up, NRA memberships go up, and this gets down another notch on not going to happen. Now, finally, before I get into the stories tonight, I want to talk to you. I have a family member who is a defense contractor and who just returned from Afghanistan. And I talked to him, incidentally, also, my son is out of Afghanistan. He is in another country. He'll be home soon, but he is out of the war zone. Thanks to those of you that mentioned him and cared. But also, my other family member is also back from Afghanistan, and he worked with the State Department and told me some chilling things yesterday, and I wasn't able to get any decent research. I was doing research, but I couldn't find what I was looking for, and I'm going to continue doing that so I can bring you an entire segment on it. But ladies and gentlemen, the State Department is building in Afghanistan to stay. They are building apartments with pools, with dining rooms. They have cocktail parties twice a week. This is getting bad in Afghanistan, and I just hope that Tillerson and the president are paying attention to this, because if there was ever a godforsaken place in the world where we do not want to be or do not need to be, it is Afghanistan. Afghanistan is now taxing the wages of American contract. I don't know if they're taxing, I don't think they can tax the government employees. I know they can't. But they're taxing anybody who's not a government employee that's working for the government. I mean, his pay went down a lot just recently. So I don't know what's going on here, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention. It's something that bothers me. I was furious last night when I was talking to him. I won't divulge. I'm not going to say anything about him because I know how that works. There's billions of dollars that are being made. The thing is, it's all off of you. It's taxpayer money. But for the State Department to not know the temperature of the country, I'd like to see us get out of there tomorrow morning. I think we've been there way too long. There's no objective. There's no win. You tell me. Call in and tell me what the win is. 412-567-1460. There isn't any. Now, something to pay attention. We got something coming up here, and it's called the Iran Fire Festival. With Iran's Fire Festival, the Mullahs have reason to be nervous, by Hassan Mahmoudi, from the American Thinker. Iranians hold and celebrate many different events and festivals all year round. Charsanbi Suri is an ancient Persian festival of fire and one of the most beloved celebrations among the Iranian people. This festival has historic and ceremonial roots. The Iranians will hold the fire festival very soon, tomorrow actually, March 13th, 2018. It always begins at the sunset of the last Wednesday of the Persian year, which will happen this year too. In this fire festival, ordinary Iranians pile tinder from bushes and pieces of wood in public places such as streets, alleys, and squares, and then set them alight. People gather around the bonfires and jump over them with shouting. The intention is to hope for enlightenment and happiness throughout the coming year. But it's not only that. The other reason is problematic for Iran's detested rulers because with the help of fire, the people also recall tribulations. These include the long battle against dictatorship and the ignorance of reactionary forces throughout their history. For Iranians today, this especially includes the 39-year dark era of the ruling mullahs in Iran from 79 until now. Boy, that'll make you feel old. By the light of fire, Iranians think about the true facts of their situation and, for many, the need to end the regime. The fire is conducive to meditative thinking, so with the Fire Festival, it's not uncommon for Iranians to think of ending the repression, torture, executions, and human rights abuses that have taken over their country and contemplate how the arrival of spring, as the new year begins on the 20th of March, 2018, brings hopes for ending this regime forever. The Fire Festival has many customs. Spring house cleaning is carried out to welcome the new year as well. This year, many people hope that the whole country will wipe out the regime for a complete cleaning. I am not projecting as I describe the Iranian festival this way. During the past decades, the Fire Festival, Schwarzenegger, in cities across Iran became the scene of protests and expressions of outrage. So we're going to see what happens here. Last year, the sound of exploding grenades and firecrackers was heard constantly in many cities, following the explosion of firecrackers by angry young Iranians. In this case, the regime's agents blacked out a whole town where it happened, and the attack of security forces on people turned to confrontation. Then clashes broke out between the youth and regime's mercenaries who tried to disperse them. But this year, the Fire Festival will be far different from that of last year, especially after the 2-week uprising that rocked Iran earlier this year. The regime is now very fearful of the Fire Festival and has issued harassing directives in the public media to deter the people from holding the customary Fire Festival. So go and check the rest of that out in the show notes links. It's something to watch. I'm not really sure on the time differential on when Wednesday night is going to come for us, but it is certainly something to pay attention to, and you got to pray for them. I mean, you really do. Now, the story you've been waiting for. This is from townhall.com, and Colonel retired Kurt Schlichter. He's been on the show a couple of times. I almost called him to come on tonight. This is something that's being talked about and thought about. I know I thought about it. I've been thinking about it a lot. I mean, you look at what California is doing and what some of the other Democrat politicians are doing, and you see the Justice Department sitting there with its thumb somewhere in its body, not doing anything. And you wonder why Democrats, well, you wonder about this, but this is, if it did happen, why Democrats would lose the Civil War, the second Civil War, too, because they lost the first one. Again, it's by Kurt Schlichter, and he really lays it out. I'm not going to get through this whole thing, so you're going to want to check it out in the show notes links, or just go to townhall.com and look for Kurt. It's obvious that the central tenet of the Democrat Party platform is now hatred and contempt for normal Americans, taking their cue from the elites in Europe and Canada, who are stripping dissenters of their free speech rights and religious freedoms. The leftist elite is moving to solidify its hold on power here with the eager assistance of tech companies and the moral support of the Fredocons, who yearn to return to pseudo-relevance as the ruling class's slobberingly loyal opposition. A Fredocon, that's, you remember the scene in Godfather? I mean, it's a hyperlink in the article. And it goes to the scene where Fredo is crying to Mike about wanting to be relevant. And I'm smart. I'm not stupid. I'm smart. Well, that's a good one. In California, the leftist government is practically firing on Fort Sumter. And nationally, these aspiring fascists are especially eager to disarm normal Americans. Doing so would be an object lesson in who's the boss, as well as solving that frustrating problem of the normals having the ability to resist. Probably because I've spent time where they actually had a civil war, many people ask me, people whose names you know, whether I think this turmoil will all end in a second civil war. They are seriously concerned, and not without cause. The left's hatred for normal Americans and its dedication to totally stripping the people who are the backbone of this country of their ability to participate in their own governance is threatening to rip the country apart. Do I think there will be a civil war? No. But there could be. That's a required line, ladies and gentlemen. This is the age of black swans, and anything is possible. We could easily see the country split into red and blue. Civil war is unlikely, but never underestimate Democrat stupidity and hatred. The Schlichter family learned that lesson a century and a half ago, the last time the Democrats decided to try to impose their hatred of basic human rights on the rest of the country, when an army of Democrats burned our family hometown. Oh, they paid for it, and they would pay again. Democrats are 0-1 in insurrections, and if they went for another round, they would be 0-2. It's a matter of terrain, numbers, and morale. Democrats who think history began when Obama was elected don't understand the dangerous game they are playing when they talk about how they want to impose their brown shirt vision upon red America. The keyboard commandos of the left seek to hand-wave away the massive strategic challenge of imposing control by force upon a well-armed, decentralized citizenry occupying the vast majority of the territory. So they babble about drones and tanks as counterinsurgency trump cards, but there are no trump cards in war. There are men with rifles standing on patches of dirt, killing the people trying to push them off. That's the ugly reality of war. And multiply the usual brutality of war by 10 when it's a civil war. There are 2 Civil War II scenarios, and the left is poorly positioned to prevail in either one. The first scenario is that the Democrats take power and violate the Constitution in order to use the apparatus of the federal government to suppress and oppress normal Americans. In that scenario, red Americans are the insurgents. In the second scenario, which we can even now see the stirring of in California's campaign to nullify federal immigration law, it is the blue states that are the insurgents. The Democrats lose both wars big time. Let's talk terrain and numbers. Remember that famous red versus blue voting map? I put it on social media all the time. I still do. There's a lot of red, and in the interior, the few blue splotches are all cities, like Las Vegas or Denver. That's a lot of territory for a counterinsurgent force to control, and this is critical. The red is where the food is. It's where the food is grown, the oil pumped, and through which everything is transported. And that red space is filled with millions of American citizens with small arms, a fairly large percentage of whom have had military training. Remember what 2 untrained idiots did in Boston with a couple pistols? They shut a city down. Now multiply that by several million with better weapons and training. Let's look at the counterinsurgent forces in the Democrat oppression scenario should they attempt to misuse our law enforcement and military in an unconstitutional manner to take the rights of American citizens. There are a lot of civilian law enforcement officers, but the vast majority of the agencies are local. Sheriffs, small-town police departments. They won't be reliable allies in supporting unlawful oppression of their friends and neighbors. The major cities' police departments are run by Democrat appointees, so the commands would be loyal, but the rank and file, a small percentage would be ideologically loyal. More would be loyal because it's their paycheck. They could be swayed or intimidated to support the rebels. Others would be actively sympathetic to the insurgents. This is true of federal law enforcement agencies as well. And the military? Well, wouldn't the military just crush any resistance? Not so fast. The military would have the combat power to win any major engagement, but insurgents don't get into major engagement with forces that have more combat power. They instead leverage their decentralized ability to strike at the counterinsurgents' weak points and eliminate the government's firepower advantage. In other words, hit and run and no stand-up fights. For example, how do a bunch of hunters in Wisconsin defeat a company of M1A2 Abrams tanks? They ambush the fuel and ammo trucks. Oh, and they wait until the gunner pops the hatch to take a leak and put a 30-06 rounds at his back from 300 meters. Then they disappear. What do the tanks do then? Go to the nearest town? Great. Now they just moved the needle in favor of the insurgents among the population. Pretty soon, they can't be outside of their armored vehicles in public. Their forces are spending 90% of their efforts not on actual counterinsurgency operations, but on force protection. Sure, they have their own forward operating bases, and they own a few hundred meters around them, wherever they happen to be standing at the moment, but the rest of the territory is bright red. As my recent novel illustrates, American guerrillas with small arms are a deadly threat to the forces of a dictatorship. But the military is so big it would overwhelm any rebels, right? How big do you think the military is? And more importantly, how many actual boots on the ground can it deploy? Let's put it in terms of brigade combat teams, which total about 4,500 troops each. There are about 60 brigades in the Army, active and reserve, here and abroad. Some of them aren't even in the country. And let's give the Marines another 10 brigades, for about 70. Sounds impressive, but that's deceptive. Let's put aside a big consideration: the existence of red states that would provide for an insurgent government structure and possibly attract the loyalty of some National Guard and even federal brigades. For example, if a President Hillary Clinton put down her Chardonnay long enough to sign a ban on privately owned guns, it's not unreasonable to expect the governor of Texas to reject federal authority. After all, California just taught us that this is totally cool. But in this case, look for several brigades located there to hoist the Lone Star flag. So now the blue states are facing unconventional and conventional forces. Let's ignore that problem and focus on a different challenge. Even a normal unit has about 10% non-deployable members. Now, if these troops were assigned to combat operations against other Americans, you would have significant additional losses through desertion. Many of the senior leaders would participate, the Obama generation, and there is a certain type of junior officer only too happy to curry favor by sucking up in defiance of their oath, which is to the Constitution, not some leftist president. You can identify them because they usually have strategist in their Twitter bios. But a lot of key capable officers and NCO leaders and enlisted troops would vanish. That is proper. It's a violation of their oath to unconstitutionally oppress fellow Americans. Their duty would be to refuse such unlawful orders. So you have significantly understrength units going in. Now, how many of the troops in a brigade are actually even frontline combat troops? About a third. The rest are support. Mechanics, cooks, clerks, medics. So a brigade is really about 1,500 riflemen, tops, before you count losses. Cut those in half for sleep, training, and refitting at any one time, which is very generous, and your brigade is really 750 troops. On your best day, with everyone showing up, realistically, it's 300. That holds one mid-sized town, and there are hundreds of mid-sized towns. Plus, there are millions of normal Americans who would fight back. Nothing would move without their permission. A few guys shooting up big rigs along the interstate would shut down the entire trucking industry. Bottom line, there simply are not enough military forces to clear and hold Red America. What about drones and bombers? Both are useful, but the minute a bombing strike kills some Red civilians, the families of counterinsurgent drone operators and pilots will be knocking at the base gates to be let inside. Now you'll need many of those brigades to protect the civilians you now need to protect from retribution. Civil wars are harsh. That's why you avoid them. How about the blue insurgency scenario? That goes even worse for the Democrats. You have the federal government apparatus in the hands of Red America, and the insurgents are the opposite of decentralized and armed. They are conveniently centered in gun-unfriendly blue cities. In other words, the blue civilian population is much less of a threat. A red counterinsurgency avoids the problem of a decentralized insurgency and insecure logistical lines. In the case of California, whose secessionist antics are approaching the point where President Trump could legitimately employ his power to crush insurrections, the tactical problem is relatively simple. For example, San Francisco is a hotbed of treason, but the populace is largely unarmed and is trapped in a confined area. You put a brigade on securing the Golden Gate and Bay Bridges, then put a brigade on the San Francisco Peninsula to cut off the I-280 and US 101 corridors. Next, you go to the Crystal Springs Dam and cut off the water. Then you watch and wait as the tech hipsters run out of artisanal sushi rice and kombucha. After about a week, they'll surrender. After all, you can't eat and drink smugness. LA is just bigger in scope, more corridors to cut off, but in the end, the population concentrations in large liberal urban areas that are their strength also make them extremely vulnerable to logistical pressure. Then there's another factor, an intangible but a crucial one. It's commitment. The Democrat threat to peace is based on its policies designed to deprive normal Americans of their right to speak freely, to worship freely, and to defend themselves and their rights with firearms. Make no mistake, millions of normal Americans are willing to risk death to defend those rights. In fact, many swore to do so when they entered our military and law enforcement. But who is the leftist big talker willing to die to impose the fascist dream of censorship, religious oppression, and disarmament on normal American citizens? Is the screeching social justice warrior at Yale going to suit up in Kevlar? Is the Vox columnist going to grab an M4? Is the Hollywood poser going to switch her gyno beanie for a helmet? No. Hell, we just heard our liberal opponents explaining why a cop shouldn't be expected to go fight a scumbag murdering kids because it's scary. America might split apart, but it's highly unlikely. It's highly unlikely Team Kale and Vinyl would fight should their big talk finally push normal America too far. Now, I apologize for reading as much as I did, but I absolutely wanted to get that out there. Kurt did a wonderful job getting down where the rubber meets the road and, past all the talk. And I know a lot of you in the audience have been worried in the past about Antifa and different things like that. Don't worry. Don't worry. It's going to be all right. And if it comes down to it, it'll be fast. The bad part about it is what would go on internationally if we should fall apart like that. So anyway, there you go. Now, moving along to why I think that Jeff Sessions, man, geez, oh man. Listen to this. This is going to break your heart if you've been following this. I hate this man. Not Jeff Sessions. James Clapper is poised to get away with lying to Congress. In 2013, former director of the National Intelligence, James Clapper, testified under oath before Congress, I watched him do this, about the mass surveillance of U.S. citizens, and the following year, Snowden's document dump revealed that Clapper had lied to Congress about the extent of the program. So the guy that is completely in charge with the capability of spying on American citizens in the government, lies to his overseers in Congress, gets caught, comes out and admits it, well, guess what? Clapper admitted that his testimony was clearly erroneous. For 5 years, the Department of Justice has dithered about whether to charge Clapper with perjury. And this is the part where I've been saying every night almost, you got to do something now. Well, today, the statute of limitations on the crime of lying to Congress will expire, and there's no sign that the DOJ plans on prosecuting James Clapper. So there you go, another guy, pees all over the Constitution, all over the American people, and the Trump administration, Department of Justice, lets it go. Son of a gun. Totally self-inflicted. The man doesn't have managerial skills. There's something wrong at the DOJ. There's something wrong. If I would have been, and I'm just stupid, but if I would have been the Attorney General, I would have had 10, I'd have had 2 lists. 10 of the top things I need to get done immediately, and then 20 of the things that needed to be done after that. And they would be prioritized, and the statute of limitations would have had something to do with that decision. It seems like we're going every which way at the DOJ except for the right way. To let Clapper get away is to invite the next Clapper. He's a horrible American. Unbelievable. Have you seen CNN's Blackout on the Farrakhan scandal? Everybody else is covering the Farrakhan scandal of the Democrats, the Republican Jewish organization that came out with 7 Democrats and called them to resign for close ties with Calypso Louis Farrakhan. And CNN is not even covering it. Not even a little bit. CNN has refused to inform their audience of a growing scandal tying prominent Democrats to Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan. Farrakhan is a notorious anti-Semite and racist. At least 8 Democrats are known to have met with Farrakhan, and 4 have refused to denounce him. CNN has refused to inform its audience of a growing scandal tying prominent Democrat politicians and activists to Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan, a notorious racist and anti-Semite. At least 8 Democrats are known to have met with Farrakhan, who routinely calls Jews satanic and has said that white people deserve to die. Minnesota Rep. Keith Ellison, the deputy chair of the Democratic National Committee, misled the public for years about his relationship with Farrakhan, new reporting has shown. Illinois Representative Danny Davis, a Democrat, defended Farrakhan as an outstanding human being and admitted to having a personal relationship with him in a pair of interviews with this reporter. So there you go. Let's see what happens with that. CNN's losing all kind of steam. I'll tell you. You can go check the rest of these articles out. But finally tonight, one of the best ones that I've seen, Arnold Schwarzenegger wants to sue Big Oil for first-degree murder. From the Daily Caller, David Craden, the Ottawa bureau chief, I didn't know the Daily Caller had an Ottawa bureau, but apparently they do, says that Arnold Schwarzenegger was once a Republican politician. Now he wants to sue oil companies for knowingly causing global warming that would kill people. The bodybuilder, movie star, and governor told Politico in an interview published Sunday that Big Oil is no different than Big Tobacco. Both are guilty of first-degree murder. he says. I don't think there's any difference. If you walk into a room and you know you're going to kill someone, it's first-degree murder. I think it's the same thing with the oil companies. Schwarzenegger says it's no different from the smoking issue. The tobacco industry knew for years and years and years and decades that smoking would kill people. Then eventually they were taken to court and had to pay hundreds of millions of dollars because of that, Schwarzenegger told Politico. The oil companies knew from 1959 on. They did their own study that there would be global warming happening because of fossil fuels, and on top of that, it would be risky for people's lives. And that guy's such a moron. They were still back in the Ice Age at that time in history. But, you know, what are you going to do? These guys, they're brilliant. I mean, they're just absolutely so smart and so brilliant that it's incredible. But, Rocky, I think I'm going to cut out of here about 5 minutes early if you want to go up there and get that thing started. I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank everybody for listening live. And for those of you listening on YouTube and other places on the podcast, try to get out here at 7 and listen on Spreaker. Get in the chat with all these great people in the chat room. Go to SteelCityResistance.com and become a patron if you can. That would really help. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. on Facebook, Bird's Eye View on Twitter. Heading to Maryland, ladies and gentlemen, to the Wayne Dupree Show. Thanks for letting us into your life for 1 hour. God bless.
Cold War Radio Eagle 1 cleared for takeoff.
Cold War Radio Eagle 1, Baltimore bound man. Destination We Are America Radio Studio. Rocky out.
Hey Rocky, hit the green button.
Eagle 1, this is Godzilla, coming around you to light the bad guys up with a Maverick.
Roger, over.